Okay, so now that you're a little more comfortable with how you might go about maintaining and organizing global state, over the next couple of episodes, why don't we put all of the pieces together? And by all, I mean everything you've learned in this series. So it should be fun. As always, let's get going. Okay, so here's the initial design that I have for you. Again, it's a basic dashboard for managing a team. And yeah, if we have a look here and if we break it down, we can see a number of things. First, a team consists of a name. A team can have a set number of members who are on the team, in this case 5. You can't click this because there's no remaining spots. And then finally, if we scroll down to the bottom, we once again see the name of the team as well as the number of spots that it allows. So again, still a fairly basic example, and yet there's enough moving parts here to be interesting. Now, behind the scenes, in preparation for this video, you can see I added a team view that consists of a header that has a button and the name of the team. That, of course, corresponds to what you see right here. Next, we have a table where we list all of the members on the team. So here's one member for James Doe. Here's another one for Sarah. Here's another one for Stephen. Here's another one for Jen. Here's another one for Joe. And then again, we are just hard coding some of this logic here that, of course, later we will need to make dynamic. And again, the same thing is true here. Okay, so what I want to get started with is some basic organization. And the first thing that pops up at me is the fact that I'm duplicating all of these table rows. So you'll notice it's the exact CSS classes. And by the way, notice that I am using Tailwind here. But yeah, notice it's the exact CSS classes for each section. So that seems like a good candidate for a custom component. Let's do that now. In the sidebar right here, let's create a new one. Now, again, in terms of organizing your components, you can do it however you want. If you want to nest them in folders, that would be fine. Otherwise, if you want to follow a simple naming convention, that works as well. In this case, why don't we have a directory called teams? And then I'll have things like team. And what would we call this? What does this represent? How about maybe team member or team member item, whatever you want. Why don't we just stick with team member for now? Okay, so now it looks like we need to grab the full contents of this table row, and I'm going to move it over like so. Now, one step at a time, right? So at the moment, it looks like we will need to pass through the user's name, their email address, and their status. So we might start by defining some props consisting of, again, the name, the email, and the status. Okay, so let's update these like so. Your name, and then here, the email, and then the status. And then you'll notice right here, I'm just using a placeholder service for the user's avatar. And to make it unique to a specific person, I can add a identifier here, in this case, the person's email. So why don't we do this? Let's bind it, and we'll have something like this. Username, and then the email. And actually, that might be enough. So I could save it like that, or convert it into a template string. And that looks pretty good to me. Okay, so now this seems to be dynamic, which means if I switch back to our team view, I can now at the top import our new component, team member from, and what is it? Components, teams, and team member.view. Okay, so now if we scroll down, I can grab any one of these table rows, comment it out, and if I switch back, we can see now we only have 4. Okay, let's replace it with our new team member component, where we give the name, James Doe, the email, james@doe.com, and the status, which is active. Okay, so now if I switch back, there we go. But now we're using a custom component there. So what I'll do now is get rid of all of this, and I'm going to repeat this for Sarah. So I'd get rid of that. Another one for Stephen, another one for Jen, and another one for Joe. And I won't make you watch this whole process. There we go. So we now have 5 instances of this team member component, and everything looks just the way it did before. Okay, great. And yet still, I don't know how realistic this is. In real life, this data would probably come from a database or an API call. We probably wouldn't hard code it like this. Instead, we'd have something like a v4. So I don't want to set up a backend and a database, but what we could do is simulate it by creating a JSON file that we can read from. So let's do this. In my source directory, I'm going to add a file here, and I'll call it team.json. And yeah, here is where I could define our members. For example, name is John Doe, email is john@doe.com, status is active. Let's stick with that one and see if we can make this work. So now what I could do is go back to team view, and at the top, I'm going to import that file, import team from our team.json file. And what I'll do here is console.log our team, so you can see that it's working the way we'd expect. Give it a refresh, info, there we go. Here's the file that we just imported. So if I wanted to grab the first user, I could grab the first item from the array, and sure enough, we have that data. Okay, so now think about it. If we scrolled back down here, we could remove all of these and instead reach for a v4. v4 member in team. Let's hide the sidebar there. And then we could just bind these like so. Member.name, member.email, and then finally member.status. So if we now switch back, yeah, this is what we want. We're now reading from that JSON file, which is our simulation of a database or an API, and we can now loop over all of the members on the team. Cool. So now, once again, if I switch back to team.json, I won't make you watch this, but I'm going to duplicate this for all 5 members on our team. Like so. Okay, so have a look. I now have 5 members for our team. And if I switch back and give it a refresh, there we go. But now, what about other information about the team, like the name of the team or the number of spots that are allowed? So maybe, if I grab all of this, this should be an item within an object that we import, like the members. And I'll paste that in and reformat. Okay, so now I could say, for example, the name of the team is, we call it Smiley. Actually, just fun little anecdote. I had my designer, Adrian, whip up a quick little design here. And as part of the screenshot I sent him, I just included a little smiley face to be a stand-in for some kind of avatar or something like that. And he decided to just keep it and call the team Smiley, which I kind of like. But anyways, the team name is Smiley. We'll say the spots available is 5. And is there anything else I need to track? No, I don't think so. Well, actually, maybe the avatar, but we're going to skip over that. So anyways, now if we come back and refresh, we'll have to tweak things just a little bit, right? Because we're now importing something different. Let's go back to team view, and we'll say, let's get rid of that. And we want to iterate or loop over the team members. So if we scroll back, team members. And again, just to be crystal clear, team members. And that should do it. Okay, so now we can swap in all of the other dynamic data, such as this one, team.name. And what else? Down here in the footer, once again, team.name. And then finally, the number of spots, team.spots. Okay, so if we have a look at this, yeah, we get the same thing as before, but now this is dynamic. So for example, if we have 8 spots on the team and the name is Acme, give it a refresh, all of that is being updated the way we'd expect, except for this little label. I should update that as well. Okay, let's bring it back into team view and let's see what we got here. Yeah, right here is my label, team.spots. Okay, so the next step is to add a bit of logic to determine if we have any spots remaining on our team. We might initially say, here's our button, disable the button if the team members or the number of the team members equals the team spots. If that's the case, then it should be disabled. And in this case, if we come back, sure enough, it is. But yeah, if we were to test this, let's assume you have 7 spots. Well, now we should have 2 more. So come back and refresh, and it's no longer disabled. Okay, next, let's make 0 spots left dynamic. So we could say right here, what? would we do? Team.spots minus team.members.length. Again, things like this can be great candidates for computed properties. Or getters, if we were to use store and Pina terminology. And we'll do that later. So come back and refresh, and sure enough, this is now dynamic. The label is dynamic, but what about this section here? We'll need to update that. So scroll down, and we'll say, well, only show this paragraph, vShow or vIf would be fine. Only show it if team, once again, same thing, if the number of team members has met the total number of spots. If that's the case, we need to show a note to them. Come back and refresh, and that looks good to me. Okay, so now, once again, if we were to test this out, let's say we have team spots of 5. We currently have 5 members, which means we update this, we deactivate it, and we provide feedback to the user. But if we only had 4 members on the team, we should have 1 available spot, which we do. And this is looking pretty good to me. Now, this is simple enough that I would be fine keeping it as it is. But yeah, why don't we continue extracting this to simulate what you might do in real life? Right here, this might be extracted into something like a team header. So let's go into components, into teams, and we might call this the header or team header, whatever you want. All right, so we'll have our template here. And yeah, once again, we'll need to add script setup to declare what our props are. So again, notice I'm having to do this over and over again. Every time I want to extract a component, I then have to declare a bunch of props so that I can keep track of all of this team data. This is the whole reason why in the next episode, we will extract a dedicated store. But yeah, for now, I'm going to create all the duplication so that we can refactor away from the duplication. In this case, why don't we say, let's just expect the full team object, like so. Okay, so if I switch back, I can now reach for it, team header, and keep in mind this got imported at the top automatically, and we will pass through the team. All right, so if I switch back, oops, that's not working, team header, let's add the extension. There we go, now it's working. Okay, next, maybe this full table could be its own component, and maybe we'd call it something like team, let's see. How about team members list, whatever you want. Team members.view. And I'll paste all of that in. And once again, I'm going to expect that you give us the team itself or the members. Now, again, a quick note, whether the template is at the top or the bottom, it's just a preference thing. When I first got started, it was very common for the template to go on the top. But these days, I often see the script portion go at the top with the template below it. And then the style tag below that. It doesn't really matter, whatever you want. Okay, so let's switch back to team view. And now here we'll have our team members where we will once again pass through the team. And I'll add the extension there. Okay, so now I can remove this import because team member is being referenced from this component here. So I will add that as well. Okay, looking good. Switch back, yep. Finally, maybe this section down here in a real life project is significant enough that we're going to do the exact same thing where we extract a component. So let's do a view component called team footer. And I will grab this and move it in here. And once again, PHP Storm, you're looking bad. Once again, we will define some props. And here, yeah, remember, I'm keeping it simple by saying, just give me the full object. But often, you might do something like this, where you have a number that represents the remaining spots, and then another one for the name. Often, you will want to be explicit. I'm just keeping it a little basic because I know we're going to refactor away from this. Okay, so back to team view, we can now import our team footer, pass through the team, and yeah, this is what we end up with, and it's a little easier to understand. And actually, you know what? This paragraph tag should probably go on team members. Or at least it could and it couldn't. But for now, I'm going to assume that it is part of this component. So that leaves us with what you see here. And yeah, even if for no other reason, extracting these components, even if they're just single-use components, it makes things easier on your mind 6 months from now. You'll visit this page and you'll see, okay, it's split up into a header, a section for the members, and a section for the footer. And then if I only need to tweak something related to the team members, I have a dedicated file for that again is easier for me to understand. Okay, so if we switch back, yeah, this is looking pretty good to me. So we effectively had what we started with, but now everything is dynamic and nicely structured and organized. So in the next episode, we're going to extract a dedicated Pina store so that we can access our team state across the entire application.